mandates in particular, because those are starting to be rolled out this week. This was something we were warning about on the show months ago, Will. And
Yeah.
while it looked like for a time that the government was maybe backing off, you came on the show and talked about, hey, they're actually they're teaming up with the government. These private companies are teaming up with the government to develop these things. And so now we're actually seeing them be rolled out. This is no longer a conspiracy theory, because the last time we talked about this on the show, if we weren't very clear about that these are just things being discussed at the White House, we probably would have caught a strike or a ban, or the video would have been taken down or something like that. But talk about what's actually happening in New York City. I discussed, I think, like a week and a half ago on the show about the mandate at the VA, but what's going on in New York City, and then what's happening with the military, because for CNN even reported that they were going to roll out mandates.
Yeah, sure, sure. I'll get to all that, but I think, yeah, New York City, I think, is a big deal. They are the first city in the U.S. now to roll out a full-fledged vaccine passport, where you have to prove that you got the shot to enter a ton of public places, like any indoor entertainment venues, bars and restaurants, as well as gyms and like fitness places. And this applies too to all the employees of those places as well. So not only the customers or patrons or whatever. And the mayor, Bill de Blasio, announced this last week, and they are calling this the key to NYC pass. And the way that he's kind of framing it and presenting it is that, like, without the vaccine, you'll be locked out of New York. Like, you won't be able to do all these great things in the city
And
if you
you're
don't have
not
the jab.
really stretching that. He said that this is a key to the city, and basically said, if you want to participate in our, he said, if you want to participate in our society fully, you have to get vaccinated.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not overstating that. And like I said, they literally called it the key to NYC pass. So like that is their wording and their framing. Unfortunately, though, they have not actually put out a ton of details on this project yet. De Blasio says they're going to have more details and specifics later this month, but they did say that it's going to start to be enforced on September 13th. And in the press release from the city government, they did say they'll be doing inspections to make sure that businesses are complying with this. And New York had tried all these different incentives and stuff to try to get people to get vaccinated. They were even handing out cash, I think, at one point, or they may still be. But apparently that did not make a big dent, because people might recall, like a week or two ago, De Blasio going on that radio show and saying that the voluntary phase is over for vaccines, that like now it's going to become compulsory. And since then, they have mandated the vaccine for healthcare workers. And I think they even did something for like new employees who are working in New York for the first time. They're supposed to be mandated to get the vaccine. And now they're rolling out this full-blown vaccine passport. Now, I was reading about it, and one good thing here is like the app that they're going to use to do this apparently is already out. And I think it's just like a basic like photo storage program. Like there was a couple write-ups on this. There were some tech people talking about this, and they're saying that like at the moment it does not have any way to actually check what you're uploading into it. So like I saw some people showing how they got it to accept a picture of Mickey Mouse or a restaurant menu or just like random stuff, and the app thinks that that's valid. So apparently people can just put anything into this, and it's going to now be up to businesses to like make sure that they are actually showing proof that they were vaccinated. But the whole thing sounds kind of easy to game. Like you could upload someone else's card or a fake one, and there's nothing in this app that's going to like actually attempt to verify that and say whether this is real. And like I think too, when you're doing it through a photo rather than like a physical card or document or something, it's probably easier to fake as well. So there is that. I am a little worried that the city government will realize that at some point and decide that like, no, actually this app has to be linked up to your official like health information, because that would be like a good way to close that loophole and enforce the policy and keep people from gaming it like that. But at least for now, it does seem like the thing is pretty flimsy and easy to get around based on just like the app that they're using for it. Unfortunately, though, I do think
Well,
New York.
just wanted so quick. I just wanted to note that this past week I saw on the BBC that kids in the UK had figured out they could cheat the COVID test by like swabbing them in. It seems like things maybe that are acidic. I think they said orange juice and soda. I don't know what exactly it is that's setting off. It could be the sugar too. But that's kind of interesting that you see so much gaming of the system and stuff like that. But was there an announcement about exemptions? Because people do have religious exemptions, and I'm guessing that would apply in New York City. There are probably some people who are very devout evangelicals of any faith that don't comply to traditional medicine and want to take the vaccine for that reason. There are also philosophical objections to taking most vaccines. I'm not sure about this particular vaccine, but I know that there's some vaccines that like certain vegans have opted out of because they use some kind of other animal thing. And then there are other places that have medical exemptions. And so I'm aware of people who have chronic illnesses and are concerned that because it's well managed now that they may have a flare up if they get, not saying that's going to happen, I'm just saying that's concern that people do have. And if you look at, I believe the drummer from, was it The Offspring, recently said that it was consultations with his doctor that advised him not to get the, so he would seemingly, if he's we're saying accurately, him and his doctor discussed this and his doctor said you should pass on it, his doctor would then write him a note. Would that get him an exemption, or what are we looking at here?
Yeah, I expect they're going to, release some of these details when they come out with more of the specifics later this month. However, I don't imagine that they're going to roll out many exemptions for like philosophical or religious exemptions, because if you see how the city government in New York has responded to the Orthodox Jewish community, because they've been one of the major like opponents to a lot of the mandates and mask mandates and closures of playgrounds and all this stuff. Like there were rabbis going around cutting locks off of gates like that the city government put on there. So I highly doubt the city government's going to care much about like these religious or philosophical exemptions. But yeah, they may, they're going to certainly have to make exemptions for 12-year-old or kids who are younger than 12, because none of the vaccines are currently approved for kids younger than 12, even on an emergency basis. And so certainly they're going to have to make some provisions for people with, for young children. And I would think for people with some kind of, health conditions that prevent them from getting these vaccines. Because yes, the people who are like, certain people who have issues with their immune system or something, they might be, they might not be able to get some of these vaccines. So yeah, you would think that they're going to do some of that, but no, I don't think they've actually put out those details yet.
Okay. What else do we have? Or should we move on to the Pentagon?
Oh no, yeah. I just wanted to say, like, I think New York could be like sort of a sign of things to come for elsewhere in the country. Because I think as everyone has heard at this point, they've been going nuts lately about this Delta variant, the COVID mutation that's supposedly more transmissible or more contagious. But like we've just been hearing about that nonstop these last few weeks. It almost is as if we're like back at the beginning of the pandemic again. We've seen all these states and cities and counties reinstating mask mandates and other restrictions. New York City has this passport. Los Angeles, I know, is talking about doing a similar thing. I think some other places have also floated that idea. And now even, as you're saying, the federal government is even starting to toy with some of this stuff, even though they mostly hadn't done much of this throughout the earlier worst phases of the pandemic. The feds had not issued a lot of mandates. But Biden recently mandated vaccines for all employees at the federal agencies, like at the departments and stuff. And now the Pentagon is also talking about making it compulsory for all 1.3 million active duty troops. Now, it is weird. There were reports last week that like this announcement was supposed to come on Friday, but the last I checked, there has not been an announcement for this yet. I believe Biden has to give some kind of presidential waiver to do this, because none of the vaccines that are currently approved, I think that's Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson, those are all just approved on an emergency basis. And I think in order to mandate them for the troops, the White House has to give some kind of waiver for that. As far as I know, that has not happened yet. But I do know that Biden's Department of Justice has they've had their lawyers look at this stuff, and they've decided that like these mandates aren't illegal. Like the federal government can do this kind of thing. And so you are hearing more and more about that. And actually, just the other day, you had the CDC director, Rochelle Walensky. She was talking to Brett Baer on Fox. And she said plain as day that like the administration is looking into a federal vaccine mandate for all Americans. Like she said this very clearly. But then a couple hours later, she went on Twitter and said, backtracked and said that won't be happening, and tried to pretend like she was talking about something else. But like it's very clear, like the question she was asked and the way she answered, it was very clear she was saying the administration's looking into this. But so a lot of the stuff seems to really be escalating on all levels of government, the city, counties, states, and the feds. And it's unfortunate because it looked like a lot of the stuff might be winding down. Like, in the spring, the numbers were coming down. Some of the mandates and the restrictions were being lifted. But now, ever since all this Delta variant stuff, they've ramped it all right back up. And it seems like we're, back where we were, 6 or 8 months ago.
Right. Yeah. So I guess that's one of the interesting things that's different between now and 6 to 8 months ago, though, Will, is 6 to 8 months ago when we were talking about this again, we were very careful of how we were talking about it because discussing it was conspiracy theory and,
Right.
it was pushing a false narrative that, they were, pushing these vaccines on everybody and they were going to make everyone take the vaccine. It does seem kind of crazy of how they've done almost a mission creep esque thing where first they got everybody who wanted the vaccine and then they incentivized people with money or social pressure, and now it seems like they're taking this step, I guess hoping that they maybe have a critical mass of people that either are down for the mandates or who already have it and who they assumed won't fight any more mandates. But this seems like it has to run into some human rights issues, Will, especially when we look at this situation in Pennsylvania, where Pennsylvania halted visits to its unvaccinated inmates. Nearly 8,000 inmates in Pennsylvania state prisons, about 1 in 5, are not vaccinated, and they will no longer be allowed to have in-person visits. Now, I didn't go through and read the international law word for word on this, Will, and I know international law doesn't apply to the U.S., and we put people in solitary confinement and torture them all the time in U.S. prisons. However, it seems like another step to deny these people the ability to see their loved ones when they're in prison, especially when a lot of these people probably don't even deserve to be there. And so this is a rather disgusting move, and I'm guessing we're going to see more of this, where the people who are relying on the federal government, either because they're forced to, like prisoners, or people in the military who, can't leave their jobs right away, like by contract. You sign up for the military, you sign up for the military. It's not like taking a job at your local gas station where you want to walk off in
Right.
the middle of the shift. That's cool. So I think that's the direction they're going to put pressure on the people that are very easy to pressure because they're relying on government resources. I wouldn't even be surprised if we see soon, Will, that maybe to get access to things like homeless shelters or government welfare benefits. Maybe you're needing the vaccine for all that stuff too. So, or you're gonna need the VATS card to get onto any government property, government building to get your welfare. You gotta go every couple months. So it seems like there's a lot of things that could be done here to force a lot of people to take a vaccine that they may or may not want to take. And it's just, the state is leveraging the people that are, victims, or again, relying on the state and our society to do that. It's kind of, again, disturbing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think more and more you are seeing this sort of like I've heard some people warning about this sort of a caste system emerging from this, the vaccination status, where our society is being divided into two, where certain people cannot go in certain public places because they don't have these shots. And now we are pushing into this. I know there were reports recently. I think the Times reported that Pfizer, the FDA, is expected to give their shot full FDA approval by Labor Day. And once you start getting into that territory, then then a lot of things become possible. Maybe they're going to mandate this at public schools. Like there's all kinds of things that I think could then, follow from them giving a full FDA approval. They're talking about how they think this is going to combat vaccine hesitancy, but I think pretty much whoever's drawn the line in the sand is drawing the line in the sand. And what that FDA approval will do is pave the path for more mandates, I think. And that's certainly what I think is coming down the pipe, unfortunately.